I picked up this 4,000 watt power inverter off Amazon. Let's take it out of the box and see how well it works. So this is everything out of the box. Of course, you get the inverter, you get these nice connectors to the battery, and as you can see, they're kind of like double wired. So it's not just one specifically gauged wire, it's two. And I'm sure it's somewhere on there. Anyways, decent sized wires. You got a little ground wire here that has a little alligator clip on the end, so that way you can clip it on something. You've got a wrench to handle the actual bolts for the lugs. Quite a few 40 amp fuses, a cable to connect the remote control to the unit, and a small little user manual that goes over some of the specs and how they expect you to hook it up. Let's go ahead and check out the inverter. On this side of the inverter, you got two output fans here, and you got the positive and negative lugs for the batteries. And you've got these cool little caps. I like it when they have the caps on top. That just gives you that extra little bit of protection, so that way you don't accidentally short circuit or ground it out. On this side of the inverter, you have four power outlets. These are 120 volt power outlets. You have two USB ports. These are USB-A. You got a power light, a fault light, an on and off switch. You have the remote hookup connector here. You have a little bolt here for the ground, and then you have a opening here where you can put load, neutral, and ground in case you're wanting to connect to something other than a standard power plug. So let's go ahead and hook this thing to a battery and test it out. So one thing I do want to note too is when you're coming in here and you're hooking up these lead wires to the actual inverter, you're going to see on the lead wires, they have two different size holes. They have one that's got a larger hole, one that's got a smaller hole. The smaller hole is meant to connect to the actual inverter because that's the size lug that it has, the bolt coming up. That leaves you the larger hole to have the option of hooking up to a battery or something that has larger lugs or larger bolts that are in that battery. So if you hook up the ones with the smaller bolts, they'll be fine and fit on there with no problem. And then that leaves you at least that much more options. Plus it's going to seat a lot better on the inverter and give you a better connection. Now that the lead wires are put in and the caps are put on, there is pretty much no positive or negative metal part of the terminal that's exposed. Really reduces any kind of risk you have right there. All right, so what you see here is this 4,000 watt inverter hooked up to two 12 volt, technically 12.8 volt, 100 amp hour batteries. Now these batteries do a continuous 100 amp output. That's what they're rated at. Both of them can peak for a short period of time, just like the inverter can peak up to 8,000 watts for a short period of time, but they're not going to be able to get anywhere close to maxing out this unit. This is all I have available at the moment, so we're going to test this inverter with these two batteries just to get a good running idea of can it handle these two portable air conditioners. Now we've got about 20,000 BTUs down here that's plugged in now. They're both plugged in to the back of this inverter. And when I get all of this ready and kick them on, they're gonna jolt probably past the 4,000 watts. One of them I tested, it went up to like 2.7 kilowatts. I'm assuming the other one would get close to that. So it probably will, for a short period of time, peak it beyond 4,000 watts. But the batteries back there just can't handle that for very long. Let's get this turned on and just see how well this 4,000 watt inverter handles two air conditioners. So what I have here is a battery monitor that's monitoring these two batteries in parallel. I've got a shunt here that allows this to monitor what's going in and out of these batteries. Then we've got the remote control that comes with this inverter here, so I can just press the button here and kind of see what's going on with it on the screen. And let's get it started. So I'm going to turn the inverter on. All right, so that powered up both of the air conditioners. One kicked on right away. I'm going to go ahead and kick the other one on. So both of those AC units are there. The fans are running. And now we're just going to see what the wattage looks like when these compressors kick on. That's the big key here. Right now we're running at about 200 watts. And the inverter display and the battery display are running pretty close. That's pretty good. So I mean, the battery monitor again is just monitoring the batteries, and this is just monitoring the inverter. So there's going to be some discrepancies, but you know, this is going to be relatively close. And the compressors haven't kicked on yet, but I'm expecting that to happen anytime. All right, one just kicked on, and now we're up to 600 watts. It jolted power for just a second, but I didn't get to see how much, but inverter again handled it fine, no problem. In total, these should pull, when they're just running normally, about 2,000 watts together. They're both probably should run about 1,000 watts. Starting off though, it's pretty low. All right, there we go. Inverter fan just kicked on. We are now running at 1.3 kilowatts. And that is basically both of the air conditioners running together. You know, both of them are gonna have a surge when they first start their motor, and neither one of them had any problems with the inverter. It does look like the inverter fan kicks on probably around 1,000 watts and seems to be staying on, but the air coming out of it is not warm at all. It's just room temperature air, so it's not getting hot. The wattage between the two is very close actually, so there's not much overhead with this inverter, which is really good. Well, it seems to be handling it just fine. I'm gonna let these both run on this inverter until the battery gets low, and you know, see how it handles the low voltage. This inverter should cut off when the voltage gets probably closer to around 10 volts. The inverter itself will just say low voltage, no more. The BMSs on the batteries, they both have a BMS in them, and they're going to protect themselves from low voltage. So they'll end up cutting off too, but I'm pretty sure the inverter is going to cut off before the battery BMSs will. So I'm going to let this run, and we're just going to see how well it does. So I went ahead and ended the test, not because of the inverter in any way. The inverter did awesome, but the two AC units were actually putting quite a bit of load on my two batteries. So the batteries are starting to get warm, and I didn't want to push those batteries any harder than I was already pushing them, but the inverter did awesome. I mean, it wasn't even getting warm. It was barely above room temperature. Everything was functioning just fine. So the inverter is going to do everything that I need it to do. I just need to get more batteries. But I hope this review was helpful. Thank you very much for watching. Y'all take care.